Was the Bible copied from ancient texts by Billy Carson?
Okay. When I took my course at Harvard University in ancient civilizations, you have to know information about the Epic of Gilgamesh. Genesis and the Great Flood. In the Sumerian version of the flood story, the gods decide to destroy the human civilization. In the Epic of Gilgamesh, the gods decide to destroy humankind because they are being too noisy while the gods are trying to sleep. Excuse me, the asthma's acting up. But in the Genesis, they lack a clear explanation as to why they're really doing this destruction. It's just saying that, look, there's a flood coming. Enki, betraying the other gods, tells the protagonist Ziusudra. Ziusudra in the ancient Sumerian tablets is actually Noah in the Bible, of his plan and how to avoid dying in the flood. He instructs him to build an ark. And we found the actual ark tablet. This ark tablet is a real tablet. It was discovered only about 4 or 5 years ago. And this ark tablet is a description of how to build the ark. And the ark was not like the one described in the Bible, which it leads to more freelancing again. The ark was described to be had built as a round ship or submersible, and it had corridors in there. And the instructions were not to take two ants and 2 praying mantises and 2 lions and 2 sheep and 2 elephants and all the animals from all around the planet onto this boat, onto this round submersible. The instructions were to collect samples from your local area of your plant flora, seed, and so forth from around the local area, and some of your local livestock. That's it. Not this fairy tale that they've been teaching you in Bible study since forever. You know, you had 2 cockroaches come on the thing, and you had 2 puppies of every type and all this other kind of crazy stuff. No, that didn't happen. I'm sorry to bust your bubble, but that never happened. Okay. Ziusudra versus Noah. Genesis is a monotheistic, book. Both Ziusudra and Noah are instructed by one God to build an ark and escape the flood. But the decision to destroy humanity is made by one and one only God. So in Genesis, you have the Abrahamic religions who believe only one God exists. Multiple gods decide to destroy the earth in the polytheistic Genesis. Now, when you read the Sumerian tablets, you find not only in Genesis, but in other tablets as well, that these gods had collaborated together and that some of them did not want the earth to be destroyed. And they were begging to the leaders, Enki and Enlil, primarily Enlil, who had full control in decision-making, and also Anu, their father, begging to them to please not let this come, not let this calamity happen. And they decided that, you know what, the experiment here had gone wrong. The people had gotten too noisy. They had gotten too wild and crazy. They had gotten too intelligent. We want to just start over. And while this flood, which seems like a directed asteroid strike, while this flood, through whatever method they used, swept over the land and turned all the kingdoms into mud, they actually were on this sky ship crying and weeping, then loathing that their creation had been destroyed. This is in Sumerian tablets. Pretty interesting stuff. Noah and his family remain human. Okay, let me read this first. Hold on. Okay, yeah. So Noah and his family remain human. After the flood, both Ziusudra and Noah are blessed by their gods, but in different ways. Ziusudra becomes immortal. So in the Sumerian tablets, the gods grant Ziusudra immortality by giving him some type of genetic mutation, allowing him to live an extended lifespan. Not necessarily immortal for eternity, but an extended lifespan. In other words, more than the 120 years. And when you look at it, then you see that Noah and his family remain mortal in the Bible version, right? In the book of Genesis, God establishes a covenant with humankind, promising to never destroy them again. The promise that God makes to Noah sets Abrahamic religion far apart from Mesopotamian polytheism. The Mesopotamians believed that they had to constantly keep the gods happy, or else they would wreak havoc upon the earth, even when all their efforts, so forth and so on, were being met and unpredictable. So what happens here is you see, and let me pause from here and go back full screen. This is another good example of something I was talking about earlier when we first started this podcast. The fact that the illusion in the biblical text that, we saved your family and everything's going to be all good. But if you look at the story after the family's been saved and they're starting fresh again, right? It also says in the Bible that not everybody died. It also says in the Sumerian text, not everybody died. So Noah and his family were not the only people left. Read it good. Read your good book good. I know the book like the back of my hand. I know the book like the back of my hand. There were giants that survived. The Anunnaki, they call them the Anak. They survived the Great Flood. And there were other people that also survived the Great Flood. So pretty interesting. So it wasn't just Noah's family. Now, here is where it gets really important. You have to understand through genetics. Noah's family did not have enough genetic diversity to repopulate the earth. Think about that. I want you to go and think about your initial family, you, your wife, your kids, and just with your own mind, think about this for a second. Think about your job now has been issued to you to repopulate the entire planet from this small genetic pool. What do you think is going to happen after y'all start having sex with each other? You're going to have a whole bunch of disabled people walking around with deformities, mental illness, right? You can't even go past the second or third generation doing that before everything falls apart. You definitely ain't going to create 8 billion people from that small genetic pool. Just like Adam and Eve did not create 8 billion people. 2 people did not create 8 billion. There were people here already. Adam and Eve was just 2 of many that already had existed. You see? This is basic bare bones biology, like biology 101. Like if you go to university and tells on your test, they ask you a question on your test, if you can mate with your brother and sister and create 8 billion people, and you put yes, you fail that class. You fail. And I dare you to try it in real life and see what happened. Right? So we got to start thinking more logically. The thing that happened after Noah's family survived, they met other people, other survivors. They built a new civilization. They kickstarted another civilization in that region of the planet. Other people were thriving in other parts of the world. But what's interesting is they go right back into the same old ritualistic things, trying to keep God happy, trying to satisfy God all the time by having sacrifices and this and that. They went back right into the same old system again. So even though the biblical text is trying to say that, hey, they just, they were blessed and they could start fresh again, not true. It's the same as the Sumerian version where they had to keep trying to keep the gods happy through sacrifices nonstop. You see? Rigor 49er. So are the Anunnaki and the Nephilim the same? They are absolutely the same, people. All right. Oops, I'm clicking the wrong button here somewhere. All right, there we go. All right, so let me go back in here again. Now we're going to get into the debates. The debates are a very important text. Thank you, T. Wells. I appreciate you. Oh, yeah, you're going to be going to Egypt with us as soon as your boys are old enough. That's going to be great because I'm going to keep on going nonstop like I've always been doing. Since 2014, I've been going nonstop, and I'm looking forward to having you guys with us. So the debates is a text. It's a text that tells you the Cain and Abel story before Cain and Abel even existed, okay? It tells you the Cain and Abel story. It reads it a little slightly differently, but it's the same exact story. The debate between the sheep and grain describes the primordial hill where the gods live. An, who's also Anu, right? The sky god creates 2 sisters, Ashan and the goddesses of the sheep, and Lahar, the goddess of grain. An creates these goddesses to clothe and feed all the gods and goddesses on the primordial hill, but they realize that they do not understand how to use their sisters' gifts, so they created man to feed and clothe the gods instead. Later, Ashnan and Lahar fight over which sister has the more meaningful gift. The story ends with the gods, Enki and Enlil, intervening in the debate and declaring Ashnan.
Full video and playlist linked below. Spiritual News Television. AA Creation 9.